Hello, I'm Trusha Naik, and this is my world weather report for the first week. So, the first week that I have been given is from 27th January 2020 to 2nd February 2020. In this plot is for the global air temperatures at 2 meters. It is taken from the NASA PSL historical data operational plotting page. Here, as we can see that since it was end of January, it was still summer in the southern hemisphere and winter in the northern hemisphere. So it is seen here that the northern polar regions, they are still very cold. Equator is more or less warm, and in the southern hemisphere we can see only near Antarctica there are very cold temperatures. Rest all they are slightly warmer. This here near Australia, as we can see, it seems much more warmer than the other countries, the other land masses, and this might be due to the ongoing bushfires there that were very devastating. There are results that they have caused a lot of rise in temperature, where many cities experience temperatures consistently above 40 degrees Celsius. Here, the global land and ocean surface temperature for January 2020 was highest in the 141 year record that is kept, with temperature departure from average, that is the difference from average of 1.14 degrees Celsius from the 20th century average. This here is the plot for the average wind vectors taken from NCP operational data set, and we can see these are the surface winds that at 1000 millibars. Here we can see near in the Indian subcontinent the winds are northeasterly, which is the normal pattern during January February, and the rest of the world we can see that the polar Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, they have the trade winds which can be more or less clearly seen. Here near the Pacific we can see the equatorial easterly winds, and same in the Pacific region. The subtropical westerlies are also a bit discernible. Same with the southern oceans, the southern part. And in the land masses in the continents, we can see that the winds have a less structured flow than over the ocean, which might be due to the friction that is experienced more on the land. This plot is taken from the same NCP or operational data set for the mean sea level pressure. The timing is from 27 Jan to 2nd February. Since it was the southern hemisphere, there was summer season. We can see that the pressures are lesser than compared to the northern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, we can see pockets of high pressure like here. So that was due to the winter season there. And here we can see pockets of low pressure systems, or the perpetual low pressures that seem to be there in the summer hemisphere. Near the equator, we could say that it is more or less equal. Let us see what the weather was like for India during this week. In India, this time it is the season for western disturbances. The northern plain, the northern part of India experiences a lot of western disturbances during January February time. So as we can see, there was one disturbance during 27 Jan to 30th Jan. It had actually come before 27 Jan, but its effects were seen during that time also. It caused fairly widespread to widespread rainfall or snow over western Himalayan region during 27 January to 30th January. This system, with its induced cyclonic circulation, also caused scattered to fairly scattered rainfall or thunderstorm activity over the plains of northwest India and isolated rainfall over central India during this period. The isolated hailstorm also occurred over some parts of northwest India in association of the passage of this system. This picture here is taken from Zoom Earth, and we can see here in the Himalayan region there is a lot of snowfall, and here there is fairly wide amount of cloudiness present, which is a classic indicator of the western disturbance. Himachal Pradesh experienced a cold wave during Jan 28th. This period, about 9 centimeters of snowfall was recorded in Shimla till 28th evening, while Manali had 3 centimeter Dalhousie 8 cm and Kufri 15 cm. The minimum temperature recorded was 1.9 degrees Celsius. Kashmir also experienced a cold wave during 29 to 30th Jan. The temperature dropped significantly at some places in Kashmir, with Gulmarg being the coldest place in the valley at minus 11 degrees Celsius. Pahalgam in South Kashmir recorded a low of minus 10.6 degrees Celsius. Dense to very dense fog occurred in many parts of East Uttar Pradesh in one day, at isolated pockets over East Uttar Pradesh in 4 days, over Punjab on 3 days, over Uttarakhand, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi, West Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Sub-Himalayan West Bengal on one day each during the week. Another feeble western disturbance was present at 30 degrees north, 5.8 kilometers above the mean sea level, on 30th of January. All of this data for India is taken from the IMD press release page. Let's now move on to Asia. In Asia, heavy rains caused flooding in Java, Indonesia. These rains had started since January 23rd, causing flooding in West Java. As on 20th Jan, the water level at some places was as high as 2 meters, that is 6.6 feet. The flood inflicted damage on or destroyed 13,881 houses, 23 schools, 79 churches, 18 public facilities, and 278 hectares of rice fields. Out of the 59,917 afflicted residents, 3,882 were forced to evacuate in several districts across the province. An orange warning was issued for the rest of January 28. There were no active cyclones in the Indian Ocean during this time, but the NASA's Aqua satellite, which has the MODIS camera on it, it captured the dissipating cyclones Isami and Diane. Isami had formed on 24th of January and dissipated by 26th. The MODIS camera on Aqua satellite captured this dissipating remains on 27th January. The tropical cyclone Diane formed late on 24th January, and by the next day it was reduced to a remnant low pressure system in the southern Indian Ocean. This photo was also taken by Aqua on 27th Jan. So as we can see, there is just some amount of cloudiness that we can see, but there is no proper structure to the cyclone. Australia experienced a tropical low which started on 24th, that is it formed on 24th January somewhere over the Northeast Territory inland, and it moved off to the Gulf of Carpentaria on 27 Jan. When it reached the Gulf, the atmospheric convection took place and it strengthened. On 18 UTC on 27 January, the central pressure deepened to 998 HPA. On 29 January, the low began tracking rapidly to the central Australia, where this region is known as the Australian outback, which is very dry. When the storm encountered this region, it started dissipating as it could not hold the moisture. Persisting thunderstorms associated with the low brought long-lived heavy rainfall throughout much of the Gulf country in northern Queensland due to the storm's abnormally slow movement. The town of Townsville received 320 millimeters of rain, breaking previous records of 190 millimeters. A peak of 475 millimeter rainfall total was recorded at the AYR DPI Research Centre in northern Queensland as a result of the low. The capital city of Canberra experienced a devastating bushfire and declared a state of emergency on 31st Jan. The fire had grown to 1,85,500 hectares, or 8% of the Australian Capital Territory of total land area. Some 100 bushfires are also burning elsewhere in the country, including 58 active blazes in the surrounding state of New South Wales, 20 in the southeastern state of Victoria, and 20 in South Australia. This here is a photo taken on some farm. As we can see, the smoke from the fire has blocked out much of the sun and it has given the sky an orangish glow. Much of Southeast Australia experienced a severe heat wave condition during the end of the week. A hot air mass delivered scorching temperatures that caused the heat wave. Temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in Adelaide, Canberra, Melbourne, while some places such as Cummins in South Australia, Echuca in northern Victoria, and Griffith in inland north southwest reached 45 degrees Celsius. Another town of Hobart, which is part of the Tasmanian island, experienced two temperature extremes within 24 hours on 31st Jan. On 31st January afternoon, the temperatures there spiked up to 40 degrees Celsius. And on the morning of 1st February, on Mount Wellington, which overlooks the town of Hobart, experienced snowfall with the temperature falling to -1 degree Celsius. In Africa, North Madagascar witnessed widespread and deadly floods due to the torrential rain, which was caused by the passage of several tropical disturbances. The flooding was to such an extent that it was captured from space by NASA's Operational Landsat Imager on Landsat 8 on 27th of Jan. At least 30 lives were lost and more than 15,000 homes destroyed or flooded. The town of Mahajanga reported 592 millimeters of rain for the month of January, while the normal rainfall is 292 millimeters for the month. To the north and east, Arachat received 495 millimeters throughout January, whereas the normal rainfall there is 159 millimeters. As we can see here, the rivers flooded the Madagascaran the town of Hilrondo Mahajambe. This river, it flooded the surrounding towns and caused a lot of damage. In the second picture, we can also see in the sea, it has mixed the mud coming from the rivers due to the floods. Europe had a very busy week from 27 Jan to 2nd February. An extratropical cyclone formed in the North Atlantic on 25th January. By 27 January, it was more or less covering the whole of North Atlantic, resulting in widespread windstorms and some spectacular satellite presentation. As on 27th, the center of the cyclone was just west of Iceland, and the central pressure was between 955 to 960 millibars. Several waves or vortices embedded in this large circulation were visible in the satellite images. About 3 to 5 vortices can be seen here in this image. After the passing of the first cyclone, another two cyclones formed in the North Atlantic. They were as if a train of two cyclones. They hit Western Europe on 30th and 31st January. The first cyclone travelled to immediate north of Scotland. This here is Scotland, delivering severe winds into parts of Scotland. Scottish lowlands experienced up to 100 km per hour gusts. Similarly, across Northern Ireland, Highlands peaked into 150 to 180 km per hour range. The first one deepened to 970 millibars on 30th January, while the second one reached a central pressure of 964 millibars. So as we can see, this here is the second one. Here it is shown that to be 964 millibars, and the first one, which was 970 millibars. The second cyclone hit Scotland on 31st with a peak gust of 990 to 120 km per hour. It caused orographic rainfall across the Scottish Highlands. A third cyclone formed behind these two, south of Nova Scotia, which is here. This region is the Nova Scotia region, and we can see that this one more cyclone had formed near that region. Another cyclone formed north of Azores Island, which is marked in the circle here. This is the cyclone. It formed on February 1st and with a central pressure of 976 millibars. It started moving northeast and was predicted to cross into UK on 3rd February. This active cyclogenesis going on in the North Atlantic Ocean was said to be due to the positive values of the North Atlantic Oscillation Index, that is the NAO index. This oscillation is an atmospheric phenomenon which is signified by the difference of pressures, that is the atmospheric sea level pressures between the Icelandic low and the Azores high. So if this index is positive, it means that there will be a lot of low pressure system forming, and if it is negative, there will be high pressure systems in the Atlantic. Several parts of southern Europe experienced warm days on 1st and 2nd Feb. Many locations reached 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, while Valencia in eastern Spain hit 27 degrees Celsius. As we can see, many Spain locations were reaching 26 degrees Celsius. Mediterranean, the temperature was somewhere around 22 degrees Celsius. Mostly Spain was much warmer than the other regions, but this also, as we can see, Europe seems to be very warm for the time, because at that time, which is the beginning of February, end of January, it is still more or less winter in the European latitudes, which is somewhere in the mid latitude region. An extratropical cyclone formed in the North Pacific on 28th of January after a frontal system underwent an explosive development and expanded its size with rapidly deepening central pressure. As on 06 UTC on 28 Jan, the central pressure was 968 millibars. As you can see, the storm is very huge and it covers almost all of the North Pacific region. By 18 UTC the same day, the central pressure reached 955 millibars. It hit south-southeast Alaska with hurricane force winds, high waves, and major snowfall across the coastal areas. The system maintained its strength throughout the night, and minimum central pressure was 954 millibars based on the 00 UTC analysis on Jan 29th. One pretty interesting feature of the interest were the convective cloud rolls or the cloud street caused by a powerful Arctic air mass advection on the cyclone's cool side. As we can see, there are widespread cloud streets off of the ice shield over the Bering Sea towards the south across the Aleutian Islands in the open sea. So these are very interesting cloud features. These are very common in such cyclonic systems in the near the poles, but still they present a very spectacular view. After the first storm delivered an intense winter storm in the Alaskan region, another storm started forming in the Pacific on 30th January. It formed after a deep wave ejected from the Northeast Asian region, beginning rapid cyclogenesis south of the Kamchatka Peninsula. The extratropical cyclone was in rapid intensification process while gradually moving north-northeastwards towards the Aleutian Islands near Alaska and the Bering Sea. On February 1 at 12 UTC, it had been analyzed as a 948 millibar cyclone. This cyclone was remarkably large, dominating most of the North Pacific region, with violent hurricane force winds and major waves. Its size was very large compared to Alaska. We can also notice that it created almost 100 MB pressure difference across the North Pacific. So as you can see near this area in the cyclone, its central pressure currently as of Feb 3, it was somewhere around Feb 1, it was somewhere around 953 millibars, and in China, somewhere in this region, we can see that the pressure is 1051 millibars. So it is almost a difference of 100 MB across the whole of North Pacific. At 2:10 p.m. local time, that is 5 UTC, on 20th January 2020, an earthquake of 7.7 magnitude struck the north side of the Cayman Trough, which is somewhere north of Jamaica and west of the southern tip of Cuba, with the epicenter being 130 kilometers east-southeast of the Cayman Islands, and was also reported and 134 kilometers north of Montego Bay, Jamaica. Schools in Jamaica and buildings in Miami were evacuated after shaking was observed in parts of the US state of Florida. Light shaking was also reported in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It is the largest earthquake in the Caribbean since 1946. A tsunami warning for the Caribbean Sea was issued by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center and later withdrawal. Two tornadoes were reported during this week. The first one in Texas, which was of EF0 category, and the second one was in Florida, which was of EFU, which is unknown category, and it happened on 31st Jan. The first one was 9.1 meters wide and 2.8 kilometer long path. It damaged two metal roofs and flipped a boat. The second tornado was not actually seen by anyone but was detected by a Doppler radar by the reflection of the radar signals from the debris that is lifted up into the air due to the tornado. This is one of the many ways that tornadoes are detected without anyone actually spotting them. On February 1, 2020, residents of central Montana witnessed one of the worst dust storms in the area experienced in the recent years. The MODIS camera on NASA's Aqua satellite captured this image of the storm around the Great Falls. The dust was stirred up by winds gust up to more than 110 kilometers per hour. They also fanned smoke and debris from a fire. As visibility in the area dropped to zero, the blowing dust halted traffic and caused accidents on the local highway, which was subsequently closed. Brazil experienced heavy rainfall in the state of Minas Gerais, Espírito Santo, and Rio de Janeiro. This flooding was caused due to heavy rainfall that started on 17 January, being associated with the subtropical storm Kurumi. On 27 Jan, the government of Minas Gerais declared a state of emergency in 101 municipalities. Belo Horizonte, a metropolitan area in Minas Gerais, had received 171.8 millimeters of rain in just 24 hours. In whole of January, Belo Horizonte received more than 800 millimeters of rainfall. Let us now see the state of the climate drivers, various climate drivers and large-scale features over the world. First, ENSO, that is the El Nino and Southern Oscillation. With neutral conditions prevailed over the equatorial Pacific with warm in the east, warm conditions in the west. Next comes the Indian Ocean Dipole. Weak positive conditions were observed over the Indian Ocean dipoles. Then comes the Madden-Julian Oscillation. Madden-Julian Oscillation was in the convectively active phase, in the phase 6 with amplitude close to 1. This Madden-Julian Oscillation is the largest element of intraseasonal variability in the tropical atmosphere. It is characterized by an eastward progression of large regions of both enhanced and suppressed tropical rainfall, observed mainly over the Indian and Pacific Ocean. The MJO consists of two parts or phases. One is enhanced rainfall or convective phase and the other is suppressed rainfall phase. So when MJO was in phase 6, it means that the southeastern Indian Ocean near the Indonesian islands, it was in the suppressed phase, and the western Pacific region, central and western Pacific region, was in the convective phase. As I have already said, the North Atlantic Oscillation was in the positive values, and we can clearly see it here in the diagrams. It was in the positive values, causing a lot of extratropical cyclones in the North Atlantic. Next comes the Arctic Oscillation. The Arctic Oscillation was also in the positive values, and Arctic Oscillation appears as a ring-like or annular pattern of sea level pressure anomalies centered at poles. Specifically, the Arctic Oscillation is calculated from pressure. The lower the pressure over the Arctic region, the higher positive values the AO index gets. So, as we can see, as of 1st February, the Arctic Oscillation values were in the positive side.